So at which point then did you guys decide to take the leap of faith to get into real estate?
Yeah, so that's a good story. So when I came, obviously, as an international student, this is an F1 student visa, so you're actually not allowed to work, right? So the only reason was for me basically being a competitive student athlete, and you don't waste your time going to find a job. So that's kind of like what the visa says, right? So we're both living in Oregon, and when COVID hit, Oregon was one of the states that took it extremely serious. You know, it was shut down. We're both in school. She had a side job working as a server, and then eventually, when COVID hit, she was not able to work anymore. Restaurants are shut down. I mean, everything was absolutely frozen, and nobody really knew what was going on, right? And we're not coming from any financial background where our parents just sent us money to support us. And it was, it was tough. They were in the same boat. They had no idea what was going on. And then eventually your expenses stay the same. Rent doesn't go down. Food doesn't go down. But just because we had no money coming in, it was tough times. So eventually our bank account, declined every single month. And
it was really stressful.
It was super stressful. I mean, every night you're like, what are we going to do? Like, we don't have money right now to pay for expenses next month.
In fact, we were even thinking about having to move back to Alaska. That's where my family's from. And even considering moving to Germany because we were like, ultimately, if shit hits the fan, we need to move back with our parents. And I think that's what a lot of kids our age actually did during COVID is they moved back with their families. So for us, it was really, really hard. And, with us being freshly together, I couldn't really be like, hey, come move to my parents' house with me. Like, I'm not sure how my parents would really take that.
So we got married then in August during the whole COVID craziness and, tried to like build a life together, be responsible. And then, being in this position where absolutely everything is against you. And we're losing our money. So like from August until December, we're just like eating our savings and trying to do something. I mean, we literally like tried everything, like, ask people to cut their grass, whatever it is, like, hey, give us something to just survive, right? Talking to coaches, but nobody really knew what was going on. Nobody had like a crystal ball, like, just be relaxed. So then January, we had $76 in our bank. It was the absolute low point. And
$76 in your bank account.
76 in our bank. And no, expected revenue coming in or anything like that. And it was January 7th, so we had not even 30 days to make the next rent payment. Luckily, we had enough groceries for that, couple of weeks to sustain. But so we were sitting there, and we always meditated. Like we always, from sports, we always had, train your mind and your body will follow. So we always had that understanding of, if you set yourself in the right emotional and spiritual setting, you'll be successful, right? So we consistently were feeding into that because it was the only thing we really had was staying consistent with our meditation, visualizing everything is going to be good, not feeding into those negative emotions. So we were sitting there meditating and we're like, okay, we got to do something, right? And like for me, it came in my head. I was always interested in real estate. I was always interested in investing, but I had the false expectation that, you have to work for 20 years, make money, and then eventually buy your first rental. That was like the idea of real estate I had back in the days.
Yeah, and
very common, yeah.
Understanding. Go ahead. Yeah, and I was going to say, I actually thought the only kind of real estate, and this is embarrassing to say, was to just be a realtor. So I actually thought I was going to be a realtor. If my degree didn't work out, this or that, I was like, oh, I'll just get into real estate, thinking like real estate is only being a realtor. So I kind of had that in the back of my head, and I always had interest in it. But once Max did some more digging online, we actually found that there's much, much more to real estate.
Well, the great irony, because we had Mark Della Torre on the show last week, was that realtors don't invest in real estate either.
Yeah.
Right? So the idea you had to become a realtor, again, a common, I don't know, it's like an urban legend or whatever you want to call it, like a myth, right, is that you need a lot of money to get into real estate. Not true. You need some money, but you don't need a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? Or you need to become a realtor to get started, and that's not true either.
Yeah.
And so what was it then? Because you had $76, you're down literally at the bottom of the barrel. What did you do exactly then to turn your fortunes around?
I mean, we knew we had no time, right? It's what I mentioned at the beginning. We had no time to comfortably sit back down and read books and educate and get a license and talk to people. For us, it was like, okay, let's start looking up what is real estate all about. One of the first things, actually, quite frankly, was one of your podcasts. We came across Steve Trang's podcast. Listened to some of the stuff, got exposed to what are people doing, wholesaling. All these things that you guys talk in those podcasts. So open up to different perspectives of what real estate is all about. So we did some digging in by watching YouTube videos and just going out and reading podcasts, Bigger Pocket, etc. And after 5-6 days of research, we're like, okay, I mean, there's an opportunity to, do wholesales. I kind of understand the basic concept of it. Let's just go and start doing it, learn while doing it. So she had a $3,000 credit card at that point in time. So we maxed it out, bought, a list, a mailer, sent out our direct mailing, and we're just waiting for calls. And eventually got, it was a good timing. So when we actually started, and it was another thing I need to mention. So when we started, we talked to some local real estate agents of like, hey, what's going on in the market right now? Like, how do you see the market moving? Because we had no background experience about real estate at all. So a lot of people mentioned at that point in time that housing inventory was short, right? It was interest rates were low. Everyone was buying. Everyone was moving out of the big cities into the suburban areas. And we were in a suburban area. So houses were gone like immediately, 50,000 over asking. So clearly, it was maybe not the perfect time for us to go into, like, I guess, find houses and sell them. But everyone was mentioning people are buying land right now to develop because there's not enough housing in those suburban areas. So when we hear that, we hear it like from two different people. We're like, okay, well, what is this all about, the land stuff? So eventually, we looked into like the land wholesaling and started our first direct mailing for suburban infill lots. And then basically got an infill lot on a contract, sold it to an end buyer. But the time was perfect, right? In a way, COVID started happening. Everyone was in the same kind of uncomfortable environment. So there was a lot of pushback on the emotional side for people to liquidate assets like land, right? Most people don't understand the value of it. So like, you know what, I have this $50,000 land sitting here. I just lost my job because, my business shut down. Might as well sell it now and move on with my life. So we had a lot of people reach out. We had our first, small $3,000 mailing campaign. We had a good amount of people call. And then our first deal, was super funny. We had no idea how to even value the land. It was an oceanfront property, or close to oceanfront, I would say. It was a block away from the ocean. The owner called us. He was like, in a perfect world, I'd take $25,000, walk away with it. Now, later on, we realized the land was worth $90,000 to $100,000. We had no idea, so we got it for $25,000. We're like, what should we list it for?
We're like, let's just do
right.
50.
Yeah, we're like, let's do 50.
And we were thinking that was way too much actually at this time.
We threw that number out. Like 25,000 would be absolutely amazing making this. And it took like 2 days and the phone was ringing.
We had so many people that were interested in buying it. And we were thinking like, okay, so if we're getting all these people interested in buying land for this one property, we need to acquire some more land. But it was funny because we were in our 1-bedroom apartment and we finally found someone that wanted to buy the deal. So Max was on his phone, scrolling through his emails, like updating it every single 5 minutes saying like, hey, did the funds get transferred, did this and that? Because we were like thinking as soon as this closes, this is going to be our first deal. It was like this amazing moment. Finally, we got confirmation that the lady sent the funds over. And what was it, $25,000?
Yeah.
And from $75, we were like, what the hell? Like, is this real? Like, we had no idea what was actually going on.
It's just a number on your bank account. Right?
And this was all within a month?
That was within less than 3 weeks. Yeah. So it's right around when the next month, statement hit and we had to pay our bill. So we took that money, paid our expenses for the upcoming months, and then we reinvested absolutely everything else.
So we got the deal under contract. We found a buyer and closed it all within a month.
That's incredible. So